tolerated. Number two, I believe Somalis have to transcend clan loyalty and start pulling their strengths together and force sectarian leaders to abandon their destructive, self-serving policies and create all-encompassing, stable, democratic, national unity government based on clearly articulated politico-economic programs. Ethiopians have been waging a relentless struggle against ethnic-based politics of the TPLF, EPRDF that treats citizens unequally and inequitably. For the last 15 years, Somalis and Ethiopians should insist on secular democratic governance where the basic rights of individual citizens are respected and where there is a separation of state and religion. Religion has to be a private matter, as Dr. Solomon has mentioned. It has to be the rights of citizens to engage in any phase they choose. That should be guaranteed. Otherwise, a dictatorship, whatever form it takes, whether it is ethnic or religious, will not solve our problems. I cannot imagine a stable and prosperous Somalia resulting from an oppressive theocratic rule as UIC was espousing or supporting. Number three, my last point, Ethiopia and Somalia have to resolve their differences and start living as good neighbors. Enlightened Ethiopians and Somalis have to discourage our respective self-serving repressive leaders from using our nationalism and sensitivities to plunge us into another round of war. Diaspora Ethiopians and Somalis have a unique opportunity to fostering coexistence and good neighborliness. Expanding contacts and interactions between Somali and Ethiopian communities in the diaspora could contribute to nurturing a greater understanding between the two peoples. I therefore applaud this good start of today to bring the two communities together. Somalis in particular, I have a message for you. Somalis in particular have to come to terms with the African Union's charter principle of Article 4 sub B. It states, I quote, respect of borders existing on achievement of independence. Though there may be an element of injustice implicit in this principle, the alternative not to adhere to it would be a never-ending cycle of war between the two countries. It is true that colonial powers had demarcated borders arbitrarily, splitting ethnic groups into it is true that colonial powers had demarcated borders, arbitrarily splitting ethnic groups, but attempting to redraw the maps of countries would open up the floodgates of wars among African states. War has to be avoided as a way for resolving problems. Ethiopians and Somalis have to explore other options to bring ethnic Somali families of both sides of the border to engage in a closer relationship. I thank you very much.
Good evening. It's truly a pleasure for me to take part in this town hall. I hear people in Hamarwain or Shibis somewhere say that it's a pleasure to share a panel with very credible professionals, intellectual Ethiopians to engage in this discourse on what is ailing our region and how in Allah's will, how do we get out the mess we're in? It is a very good omen. It's a very good start. What we have to have is a reasoned communication. But at the same time, we have also to be very conscious of our history. The topic I've been given is the relationship between the governments of Ethiopia and Somalia. The relation between the two governments is a more recent one. It goes back only to 1960. But there has been a relationship, a long relationship, between the Somali peoples and successive Ethiopian governments. That relationship, as the previous speaker has said, was not a good one. To be very blunt about it, it was a very bloody one. And here we are not talking about the peoples, we are talking about governments. The peoples of the Horn are desperately demanding peace, democratic governance, and development in both Ethiopia and Somalia. They don't have it. Ethiopia as a state, at least in formative stages, predates the Westphalia Treaty of 1648, which is the basis of the modern ideas of what the state is about. Probably we don't have to go too far into history, but it's imperative to remind ourselves of the 19th century when the Europeans started attempted. Johannes tried to rally support against the Islamists. The Islamists were not in Somalia at that time, they were in the Sudan. Johannes fought and lost his life waging war against the Mahdi in the Sudan. It's really instructive to read the Western media of that time and to compare it to what has been the leitmotif or the mantra of the Western media now, and how Meles exactly played on those very same sentiments. Menelik, who became probably the most important emperor in modern Ethiopian history, sent a circular letter to the Europeans who were scrambling for Africa. And in his own way, astute way, he said, "Why should I refrain from taking part